Hello, my name is Cameron Beam, and I will be giving my foreign country report presentation on Japan today. So, starting off with the identification on the map. So, over here, you'll see this red portion is Japan, and as a reference point, right here is Alaska, here's Russia, China, North and South Korea. You can see that in a little bit more detail right here. And this green portion is obviously Japan. So the languages of Japan, the main official language is Japanese. One of the secondary languages in Japan is the Ryukyuan language, and that's a regional language, mainly now, especially only spoken in a certain region of Japan. And then there's some foreign languages spoken there, and the common ones are English, German, Portuguese, Russian, Spanish, and French. The population of Japan is 128.6 million. The GDP per capita of Japan is $38,428.10 US dollars, and that was in 2017. So a little bit of a comparison and analysis of the GDP per capita versus population in terms of the wealth of the country. So I have three different comparisons. So Japan with just above 38,000 per 128.6 million people, and we'll take that versus Germany with a slightly higher, significantly higher GDP per capita with a significantly lower population. And then there's the United States, again with a significantly higher GDP per capita and a very significantly higher population. In terms of wealth of the country, especially of the overall country, it's difficult to determine the wealth based on the GDP per capita and population. Normally, a higher population along with a higher GDP per capita would mean a wealthier country, but one aspect that I believe is important that isn't taken into account here is the lifespan of an individual, how long that person will live in order to produce that $38,000 worth of goods per year. So I guess in terms of GDP per capita and population, the highest population with the highest GDP per capita would be the United States, which would mean it would technically be the wealthiest country. But GDP per capita alone, I don't think determines the wealth of a country. I think GDP per capita along with population is a better indication of the wealth of the overall country, but I think there are other factors that come into play when we're talking about overall wealth of a country. Overall, Japan's GDP per capita versus its population is pretty good. They have a large economy, a large global economy. So a day in the life, I chose the life of a high school student because I feel like that relates to us because we have been there recently. So pretty much a high school student is one of the busiest people in Japan. So before school, they start off with a breakfast prepared by the housewife, as it's known in Japan. They commute to school usually through bus or bike or walking, depending on how far away the school is, which can take anywhere from 2 minutes to 2 hours. And then extracurriculars such as sports clubs or academic clubs also partake before school at times. Their school hours are from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. usually. They begin the day with morning announcements, as we do, followed by classes, which is similar, lunch, also similar, and then ending with classes, which that seems like a very similar schedule, but at the end of the day, they do something that's different from normal United States high schoolers, and that's called Soji. And Soji is a period where everybody, superintendents, principals, students, teachers, actually do the cleaning of the entire school. And that's, cleaning toilets to scrubbing floors to washing down desks and all that stuff. After school is where I'd say that is the most different from the United States. Their extracurriculars, which is similar, usually last an hour and a half to 2 hours right after school. Typically, Japanese high school student does 2 hours of studying after school. And socialization is actually a main topic in Japan right now, with high school students only usually having 30 minutes of socialization each day after school, which is very little in comparison to United States high school students, and that's an important aspect in the development of kids. And then one thing that's very different is cram school. And cram school is a school which focuses on entrance exams to better high schools or universities, and that can last anywhere from 2 hours each night to 5 hours each night, actually. So as you can see, the life of a high school student is very busy, and they don't have much time for recreational activities. So some significant historical events. This is pretty common, a pretty widely known historical event. It is Hiroshima and Nagasaki. These were two locations in Japan where the United States dropped the atomic bomb on them. In Hiroshima, 2,000 soldiers were killed, and an estimated number between 70,000 and 126,000 civilians were killed. In Nagasaki, a total of 40,000 to 80,000 were killed. The healthcare system in Japan, everybody is required to have healthcare, whether that be employer provided, or if they don't have an employer, it has to be government provided. Within the government provided program, the patient always pays 30%, where the government pays 70%, and that only includes screenings, examinations, prenatal services, and infectious disease control. The hospitals must be nonprofit. There can't be privatized hospitals that are run for profit, and they must be operated by physicians, just due to the fact that physicians are always looking out for the best interests in treating their patients, whereas others, such as strictly board members of a hospital, would be biased to the financials of the hospital. And doctors cannot deny service to any patients. Also, within the government healthcare system, nobody can be denied that service. So one of the major health threats in Japan is suicide. It was the leading cause of death in males ranging from 20 to 44 years old, and currently that number is declining, but back in 2013, it was taking the lives of 70 people per day plus. And the main reason that was found behind the suicide was unemployment. So basically, the size of Japan is very small versus the amount of people who live in Japan. It's a very highly concentrated area in terms of people with space, and so unemployment was a huge factor, with just not enough jobs to go around in a large recession during that time period. And then people who were still working were very stressed in terms of being laid off. And so they would just be overworked. They'd be working very hard to keep the job that they had. And now that those numbers are down, it is still a very common problem in Japan, major health threat in Japan today. So some of the advantages of the healthcare system in Japan is the low cost of checkups and screenings. People in the United States always are complaining about the high cost of just a regular checkup and 10 minutes of a doctor's time. And that has to do with the doctor salaries in Japan. Doctors are paid very little in comparison to what American doctors are paid. People in Japan actually visit the doctor 14 times per year, which is 4 times more than the average United States citizen. And like I mentioned before, you cannot deny a patient of any healthcare system. And then the life expectancy of the male and female is 83 years. So more specifically with males, it was 81 years, and with females, it was 87 years, which is very high, and I think one of the highest in the world. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed.